Well, goddamn do-si-do. Off to the races we shall go. Oh, you better believe it. Oh, you better believe it. Oh, you better believe it. Let's look at this 3-cheese ravioli right here.
Decide time for on the weekends to make. Not because they're easy, but because you really enjoy the process of making something nice to eat for the people you like. So today, I'm going to show you how to make fully from scratch handmade cheese raviolis. That means no stand mixer or pasta machine required, just a few hours of manual labor and a good attitude. To get started, I'm going to grab my food processor and into that measure 285 grams of all-purpose flour. Now with the blade spinning, I'm going to stream in 20 grams of extra virgin olive oil, 2 large eggs, and 6 egg yolks. Once everything's streamed in, I'm going to continue to spin this on high speed for 10 to 15 more seconds or until everything has fully combined like this. The dough should be just a little bit tacky here because it's hydrated but has no gluten developed yet. So to do something about that, I'm going to flip this out onto a floured cutting board, and yes, that's quite tacky. A bit more flour to keep things dusted. Then I'm going to hand knead this dough for about 2 to 3 minutes to develop some more strength. I'll mention that if you don't have a food processor, you could just stir the flour, eggs, and oil together in a medium bowl until they're combined, then flip them out onto the cutting board and knead them just like I am here. Stand mixer instructions will be in the description box below. After 3 minutes of elbow grease in this dough, it's now well developed, well kneaded, and a lot less tacky. But before we can roll it out, the dough needs to fully relax and the flour needs to finish hydrating. So I'm going to wrap this well with plastic wrap and put it out of the way while we make some fresh ricotta for this pasta. For that, I'm going to grab a high-sided saucepan and put that on the stove over at medium heat. Into that, I'm going to measure 2,000 grams or a rough half gallon of whole milk, 200 grams of heavy cream, and 15 grams of salt. Using a wooden spoon, I'm going to stir that to dissolve the salt. Then I'm going to turn the heat down to low, and now I'm going to gently raise the temperature of this milk to 190 F 87C over the course of about 15 minutes. I'm making my own ricotta here because the store-bought stuff in the United States is very bad. It's super grainy and pretty wet, and I really can't recommend it to anybody. The only other option would be to go to like an Italian grocery store. They might have something of high quality. The best way to know is to just give it a taste. It should be light, creamy, sweet, and not grainy at all. The other alternative would be to cut store-bought ricotta with 50% mascarpone cheese, or you could just make your own, which I recommend. After 15 minutes of stirring this milk every 3 to 4 minutes, it's in the temperature zone that we need it, 190 F 87C. So next I'm going to slowly drizzle in 100 grams of white distilled vinegar. To get that vinegar evenly distributed,
Well, Jake reached out to me in a personal email. Tell you the same thing I told him. I'd love to commentate on it, but some psychotic Kyle Kalinske fan keeps reporting my videos. I had a second one, but it was in the realm of, well, we'll give you a break. Again, do I think it's Jake? No.
I'm going to gently stir it with my wooden spoon. Very gently. Any aggressive stirring here would shatter the fresh, fragile curds and make things nearly impossible.
I don't talk on my cooking channel, Iron Gullet. And by the way, the best thing for the New York governor to do, or the Democrats to do, is grant Trump clemency. Because right now, you martyred the fucker.
Possible to strain into a proper ricotta. Once that's all stirred to combine, I'm going to let this sit here off heat for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, it's time to check in and see how this ricotta is looking. As this milk sat, the acidity of the vinegar caused the proteins in the milk to coagulate and turn into a curd. That's the thick white stuff. The clear watery stuff is what we call whey, and we don't want it, so we're going to strain it off. To do that, I've got my cheese strainer here and a piece of cheesecloth as well. I'm going to unfurl that, fold it in half, and then lay it into what is actually just a salad spinner. Now, to pull the curds out of the pot, I'm going to use a slotted spoon and then get 6 to 7 large spoonful of curd pulled off the top and then gently laid into the cheesecloth before I do any pouring of the curds into the strainer. When I get to the point where I can't pull any more curds out of this pot, I'm going to very gently pour the curds and whey from the pot through the strainer like this. Now I'm going to lift the basket out of the spinner and discard all that vinegary water milk into my sink, then leave the curds to cool off and drain in the basket for about 15 to 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we've got just about the best tasting ricotta available to any home cook, at least in the United States. It's sweet and creamy and just so fresh tasting. When I make it, I pretty much eat all of it within the...
Doesn't matter. You're still able to run for president. And I guarantee you this will be overturned on appeal.
First day, and apparently that's not the best move for my gut health according to the at-home microbiome test I just took from the sponsor of this video, Ombre Lab. It turns out that when you eat
Fucking hell.
your own YouTube food, good stuff if you can get it. Next in is 5 grams of salt and then a lot of black pepper. Let's say 50 cranks or like 2 grams of black pepper. The lid goes on, and now I'm gonna spin this up to combine. Wait, that isn't right. Add in 1 large egg as well. That's gonna bind the cheese together and keep everything from getting grainy and overcooked under the high heat of boiling water. Perfect. Now I'm going to spin this up until the fontina is fully broken down into the ricotta mixture. That's going to take about 15 to 20 seconds in total. And there we go. It turns out that the best ravioli filling in the world is just 3 very delicious cheeses combined with an egg. Simple is good. Now I'm going to transfer this over into a large freezer bag and then zip up the back. You'll see why I'm using a freezer bag in just a second. Now let's grab that rest.
Same exact reason I did on my baked ziti.
Pasta dough off the top of the fridge and roll some ravs. This dough's been resting for about 45 minutes on top of the fridge, and now it's fully relaxed, fully hydrated, and ready to roll. The combo of the yolks and the olive oil in that dough is going to give us something that is extra malleable and is going to be very forgiving for beginners who haven't rolled stuffed pasta before. The first move is to get things floured up, then cut the dough in half because we're going to be rolling this out in 2 batches. I'll grab my rolling pin. I really like this tapered one, by the way. More flour to keep things from sticking, and now I'm going to roll out, flipping once or twice as I go to get this chunk of dough to start to resemble a sheet of dough. Keep things really well floured to prevent stickage because as this sheet grows larger, it's going to get slightly stickier. The goal here is to stretch this pasta into a 10 to 12 inch tall, 24 to 26 inch wide sheet. That's roughly the width of my cutting board. The way to get there is patient, gentle pressure and just using your judgment to see where you need to apply pressure and where things are looking thick. Once I'm in the rough ballpark of the size that I want, I'm going to fill in the corners by cutting off the overlapping dough from the side of the cutting board and then pressing those firmly to fuse them back in with the dough. There we go. Now I've got a roughly rectangular-ish shape in the proportions that I'm looking for that's about the thickness of 4 sheets of notebook paper, give or take. I'll flour the top one more time, then flip the dough so that the floured side is touching the board, and then from there I'm going to cut this in half right down the middle lengthwise. I'll cut off the bottom, then the top, then I'm going to cut the sides into nice, clean right angles. There we go. 2 sheets, even thickness, 5 to 6 inches tall, 24 inches wide. That's going to make about 18 ravioles. A quick extra step here is to mark exactly where the ravioli filling should go. For that, I've got a ring mold that's about 1.5 inches across or 4-ish centimeters. Using the rounded side, not the sharp one, I'm going to gently put an indent in the pasta sheet on the bottom half, about 1/2 inch up from the edge, every 4 inches or so, center to center. Once I've got 9 per sheet, or about 18 rounds in total, I'm going to grab the Ziploc bag of cheese mush from the fridge and squeeze the filling down into the corners, twist it off, then cut off about 1 inch from the corner, and there we go. Now it's a piping bag. Laying down the filling onto the pasta sheets is actually super simple. Just squeeze the bag until there's a good sized dollop of filling that kind of fills the circle. The batch size of filling is enough to generously fill 36 raviolis and then some, so feel free to go generous. Once I've got 18 squirts of cheese lined up on this pasta, I'm going to use a spray bottle to lay down a little bit of water to make sure that this pasta can stick to itself again. I probably went a little bit overboard on the spray here, and you'll see what that does in a second.
Not how you would have done it. You bundle things right, and that saves you up to 10% on your USAA home and auto insurance. Get a quote today.
Slow motion?
I can. Flexible financing for cosmetic treatments and skincare with Care Credit.
Now, once we've got tacky pasta, I'm going to lift and fold over the sheet. The top goes down to the bottom, and I'm going to give it a gentle push to make the seal stick. Once I've got that dough folded over, now I'm going to switch over to a point of view mode so that you can really see what I'm doing. The move here is simple. Starting at the top, I'm going to push the filling back into the middle while also making the sheets fuse together with a little bit of downward pressure. Then, using my pointer finger and my pinky, I'm going to form up the filling a little bit to try and squeeze out any air sitting between the pasta sheet and the cheese. It will explode in the water if there's a lot of air in there. When all the air is squeezed out, I'm going to press all the way around the ravioli to make sure that the sheet is sealed up. The ravioli will also explode if the sheets aren't fused together properly, so don't be shy with pressing them together. I'm going to press the other 17 ravs real quick, and now to cut this into a singular ravioli, I'm going to use a fluted cutting thing like this. Super cheap if you don't have one. I will link to this one below in the description. I'll zip off the end, then the top, and then the bottom. This is where you can see that I used too much water because the pasta had time to actually fuse to the
Right. I know it's a little bit short, but that's it for me.